All right, let's get right into it. We're digging into a wild academic paper that claims everything you think you know about American football is a complete fabrication. Seriously, forget the history you learned, because according to this, the entire playbook is a lie. The paper, from something called the Journal of Chronoathletic Studies, opens with this one simple but honestly reality-shattering question. It argues that the standard origin story, the one about Ivy League kids messing around with rugby, isn't just a little bit wrong. No, it's a massive, timeline-breaking cover-up. So where do they even start with a claim this big? Well, language. They say that if you look at the diaries of Walter Camp, the supposed father of football, you find him using words that just shouldn't exist yet. Quantum blocking, laser down. I mean, come on, nutritional supplement sponsorship? This, the paper argues, is the first little thread you pull that makes the whole official story just unravel. So if Walter Camp wasn't the guy, then who was? Well, this brings us to the paper's absolutely bonkers main idea, the chronological dislocation hypothesis. It says that the real founders of football weren't from the 19th century at all. Nope, they were time-traveling refugees from the year 2298. And yeah, this is where you gotta buckle up. Okay, so why, right? Why would a bunch of rugby players from the future jump in a time machine and go to the 1800s? The answer, according to this paper, wasn't to change history or anything like that. It was to escape what their own sport was about to become. Let's just quickly run through the timeline they lay out. It all starts in 2290. The Galactic Rugby Federation, apparently a thing, decides to allow cybernetically augmented players. For 124 purists, this was a step too far. So in 2298, they steal a time machine to get out. They were aiming for ancient Sparta, but oops, a little miscalculation sends them to New Jersey on November 5th, 1869, literally one day before the first college football game on record. Coincidence? The paper says absolutely not. And you gotta understand what was at stake for them. This wasn't just some rule change they didn't like. We're talking about humans being totally replaced by cyborgs with a ridiculous 40,000 psi of torque. For these guys, the gridiron fathers, it was a fight for the actual soul of human athletics. But their trip through time wasn't exactly a smooth ride. The paper introduces this key medical condition that it claims explains, well, almost everything about football. It's called chronological asthma. Basically, a really nasty side effect of their time machine tech that completely wrecked their stamina. And this is where it all starts to click in a weird way. That one medical problem shaped the entire game. These guys could only go all out for maybe 4 to 10 seconds at a time. So that leads directly to the invention of downs. They needed a mandatory recovery period. Hello, 40-second play clock. All the stopping and starting, it wasn't strategy, it was survival. And the huddle? The paper says that wasn't to talk about the next play. It was to secretly hit their futuristic inhalers without the locals getting suspicious. Even the football itself gets a total rewrite. We're always told its shape is for making it easy to throw. The paper says that's just a lucky coincidence. The original ball was actually the unstable fuel cell for their time machine. The laces, cooling vents. The pointy ends, magnetic stabilizers. Which suddenly explains why something like Deflategate would be such a huge deal. Messing with it could have literally vaporized the whole stadium. But the theory goes even deeper, like all the way down to the genetic level. The paper presents this pretty wild chart suggesting that the best players aren't just talented athletes. No, they're direct descendants of these genetically engineered groups from the future. It's not about practice. It's about your 23rd century bloodline. And here's the breakdown of the two main groups. First up, you've got your quarterbacks. You know that almost spooky ability they have to see the whole field? The paper says it's because they come from the pilot caste, the guys who flew the time machine. They literally see the game in 4 dimensions. And those huge linemen? They're from a heavy infantry caste, future soldiers bred for size and power. Makes sense, right? Okay, so if all the main players are descendants of these time travelers, it kind of begs the question, what's the deal with kickers? They always seem so different, isolated, kind of weird. Well, according to the authors, this is where the whole story takes a very, very dark turn. The paper points to what it calls the kicker anomaly. Think about it. Your typical player is part of the team. They show emotion. Their careers end because their bodies break down. But the place kicker? They're often loners, just doing the same mechanical motion over and over. And the weirdest part? They seem to play forever. 47. That's how old Adam Vinatieri was when he finally hung up his cleats. The paper basically says this isn't a miracle of training, it's a biological impossibility. A normal human body just can't do that. And that leads to this absolutely mind-blowing conclusion. Kickers aren't human. They're T-1000-style hunter-seeker cyborgs, sent back from the future to hunt down the time-traveling refugees. And they infiltrated the game by creating this one position that requires almost no physical contact because, a big hit might accidentally reveal their shiny metal skeletons. And the evidence, the paper claims, has been hiding in plain sight the whole time. That old-school single-bar face mask? That's a high-gain antenna. The switch to a soccer-style kick? Just a hardware upgrade to better gyroscopic actuators in their hips. Calling a timeout to ice the kicker? That's a leftover folk memory of trying to literally freeze their hydraulic fluid. Even the roughing the kicker penalty is reframed as a treaty put in place to keep the cyborgs from activating their laser self-defense systems. So if this whole thing is a secret war on the field between human refugees and cyborg assassins, who in the world are the guys in the striped shirts? Well, the referees, according to this, are a third party. They're agents from an even later future, the 25th century, sent by the Temporal Preservation Bureau. Their job isn't to watch for false starts. Their job is to make sure this whole proxy war doesn't create a time paradox that destroys reality itself. No pressure. And just like everyone else, their equipment is actually super advanced tech. The zebra stripes, active camouflage that messes with cyborg vision. The little yellow flag, it's a localized EMP to shut down a cyborg that's about to go rogue. And the booth review, that's them making a direct call to their bosses in the 25th century to make sure a play didn't just break the timeline. And this brings us to probably the most terrifying idea in the whole paper. The next time you're waiting for that ref to come out from under the hood, just remember this. If the call stands, the timeline is okay. But if the call is overturned, it means they are literally rewriting reality to stop an apocalypse. So, let's put it all together. The theory argues that American football isn't a game at all. It's a refugee camp hiding in plain sight. It's a weekly proxy war between the last free humans and the machines hunting them, with time cops making sure it doesn't spill out and destroy all of existence. And the paper ends by leaving us with one last, urgent question for future research, one that'll make you look at the sidelines a little differently. Is that stuff in the Gatorade cooler just electrolytes, or is it radiator coolant for the cyborgs? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.